my mother was born in Sweden. They landed on Ellis Island. They couldn't speak a word of English, so they moved to Chicago. My grandfather worked in a steel mill. My father from Central Illinois. He met my mom and moved up to St. Paul. They decided to get out of the clothing business, so he created a clothing distribution center where it sold Wrangler jeans and parkas, that type of thing to small-town merchants.
Denny had a very tough childhood. He lost his mother when he was 4 years old to breast cancer. He started working in his father's garment business when he was about 8.
I would take a streetcar from my little school on down to downtown St. Paul, worked in his warehouse, cleaning it up, sweeping floors, all that type of thing, eventually getting into stocking, and then working with customers.
He wasn't able to do a lot of things that other kids were able to do, and it built an incredible work ethic in him. He would say today that work ethic has paid huge dividends, and it was probably worth some of the sacrifices and some of the things he gave up as a child.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't grow up with a lot, so I think he desired to achieve things that maybe he otherwise couldn't have.
I was a tough kid. Used to love to get into fights and brawls with other kids and so on and so forth. I had kind of a gang type mentality, I guess.
It really started with him getting in trouble in a fight.
I'm down there and doing this. So, okay, kind of broke up, got in my car. There was an APB out for me. And I was with two buddies over at a hamburger shop. Bum. Okay, you are in jail, boy.
And he was arrested then, and he spent some time in jail.
It turned out to be one of the best things in my life. I said, Judge, you gave me the best wake-up call I could ever have. If you let me out, I'll go to college. I had no intention of going to college. He said, if you can get into the U or some college, I'll think about it. So I applied. My high school grades were not very good, so I had to start on scholastic probation. And I made it through, 4+ years, and got a degree in psych.
When he graduated, he took a job with a construction products company, and he was one of their top salesmen in a very short period of time. And he asked them for a raise since he was performing above everyone else, and they said no, that's not their normal process. And at that time, he quit the job and started his own, really, to compete.
As a kid growing up, I didn't really know what Dad did. I mean, he'd bring us to his office and we'd, play around with the microphone system or whatever, but we didn't really know what Dad did. He just had his office, but he ran the company.
I took the company public at $5 a share. 1982, I sold it for $35 a share. So I had some very happy shareholders. I had sold my chemical business at age 43 or 44. And I was just looking for something to do, fill some time up. And so I went to a 3-day clinic and learned how to play golf. Nope. Golf and sailboat racing are probably my two favorites. And I've done both of them around the world. I bought a sailboat that was just to take the family out, but decided the sailing was not enough for me. So I got into racing, and now I race internationally. Have really enjoyed it. It's good competition. I'm a competitive guy. I love to win.
Denny ended up buying this bank from a friend of his that was going through a divorce that needed some cash.
I was working for a different bank. Denny and I were acquaintances, had golfed together. This bank had had some very difficult times before Denny bought it. One of the first days I was here, Denny sat down with me and he said, what we want this company to have is the pride in itself it should have.
A lot of people said, well, Denny's always had a lot of money, and they think he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Anything but. In the first few years with Denny, he always had an old van that he used to drive around, and he duct taped the gas cap closed. When he had this contact business, he would drive into Chicago, into St. Louis, into Denver, and he'd sleep in his car instead of getting a hotel room because he wanted to save the money for the business.
It's fine to be successful, but what do you do with it? And how do you impact people? That's really, I think, a credo that I live by.
I always remember after the first gift to Children's Home Society, we were visiting one day and Denny talked about a friend of his who had challenged him, saying, you know, Denny, there's a life of success and many people live a life of success, but you should try to live a life of significance where you make an impact on other people. And I'll never forget that.
And the first big deal that I did was the Children's Hospital here.
So Denny had developed, I think by that time, a pretty strong affiliation with the Sioux Valley Hospital. Kelby and Denny together ended up as a marvelous partnership, and Kelby had a vision that was a huge vision.
Dave Knudson said this guy has a heart for wanting to do something good for kids, and he might be somebody that could help you.
I think it came at Denny at a time when he was thinking about how to move to a real significant type of giving.
But I strongly believe it's not enough to just achieve whatever level of success that we can do while we're alive on this earth, but rather take whatever we have and turn it into something significant.
After the money was raised and the design and the game plan was laid out, I'd gotten a sense from Denny that there was more in his mind.
And I think that Kelby hit him at the right moment where he wanted to make a more serious commitment.
And so I was part of the team that went to Colorado to ask for the big gift.
I used the excuse of having met my fundraising goal for the Children's Hospital to go talk to Denny, and presented that to him. And he said, "But you're here for something else, aren't you?"
And I don't think I breathed for the next 10 minutes. I think we all felt that this was the future sitting at this table.
And so I handed out the materials that went into the notion of a world-class research facility, finding a cure, developing a system that could rival the great healthcare organizations of our country and the world, and then circumnavigating the globe with clinics. And he said, "So what gets this done?"
And Kelby looked right at him and said,
"It'll be $400 million.
$400 million.
He put his hands around his throat and said, "Do you know what you're asking for?" And I said again, "Yes, sir, I do. And we'll take good care of it, and we'll get it done." He leaned forward, put his hand on my left arm, and said, "Okay, let's do it."
When I first heard about Denny's gift of the $400 million, he had just returned from Colorado, and he pulled Dana Dykhouse and myself together, and he said, "We need to pick up projections for the next few years. I just committed $400 million. And we're like, "What?"
With Denny's gift, it transformed our worldview or our expectations of ourselves. And we were going to be sure that we were doing things that were beyond what a community health system could do. And it transformed our whole culture with the attitude that we can.
I came here to Sanford Health 8 years ago thanks to Denny Sanford's philanthropy and the tenacity of this organization to want to make an impact for its patients. So through that, we've been able to build research programs and bring treatments to cures to a number of different diseases and maladies to our patients here within our footprint and across the United States.
Why don't we try to circumnavigate the globe with primary care? And it started with children's clinics.
If we are sick, we come here so that the doctors and nurses can help us.
The philanthropy, the gift from Denny was so instrumental on what we're able to grow here at Sanford Children's, that we're able to recruit top-notch pediatric subspecialists that want to come here, that want to teach our trainees, that want to care for our kids.
A little gal walks up, she's very pregnant. She has an older gentleman with her. She introduces herself, introduces her father to me, and she said, "You saved my life. You saved my baby's life." We were diagnosed as having incurable problems in this pregnancy and the like, and we're likely to both die. And we moved over to Sanford Health, and you saved our life. The tears are flowing. Our tears were flowing down. That's significant.
People of wealth, people of accomplished financial means can step forward and change the world. Certainly can change the life of one person, and maybe millions, as Mr. Sanford has done.
When you give to a healthcare system, it's more than just plain philanthropy. You're giving to people's lives.
It gets contagious, and that's a disease we don't want to stop, because once you know what's possible, you invest in it.
If everyone gives, we all have a lot more pride for our community as well, and that's what we're trying to continue to build.
Well, Denny continues to say he wants to die broke, but with the success that his businesses have had, he's going to have to work harder at that. So I think we haven't heard the last of Denny's philanthropic efforts.
The drive to do stuff is still stronger than ever. He's always got something coming up.
My motto is to aspire to inspire before you expire. Do something for someone else. Get them inspired.